The Western world has a very serious problem right now, a problem so severe that it will make previous civilization collapses pale in comparison if this isn't addressed immediately. Now, we all know the problems of AI and how these problems are growing every single day, but yet no one is talking about the most serious threat. In fact, I haven't heard a single person or news outlet even talking about this threat. And this threat is growing exponentially every single day. Now, it's common knowledge that the populations of the Western world are at risk of collapse in the decades to come. Not just because people are choosing to have less children or no children at all, but marriage rates are falling, divorce rates are skyrocketing, and the preference for non-monogamous relationships are shooting through the roof. But most worryingly, and I can't believe I'm actually about to say this, AI realistic partners and pleasure bots are growing exponentially. In fact, they're becoming so popular that many men say that they will never have another real girlfriend ever again, because they say that a real woman can never compare to their perfect AI synthetic. And no, this isn't a joke. This is happening right now. With all of these factors, I don't need to tell you that the West is digging their own grave. You and I both know that if everyone were to stop having children tomorrow, the human race would be extinct within a generation. If you've seen the movie Children of Men, well, yeah, that's pretty much what I'm talking about here. Economic stability and technological advancements actually rely on a young and healthy labor force. So if birth rates continue to fall, not only will there be less of a workforce, but our standard of living will fall off a cliff. We'll come back to the AI bots and how these synthetic dolls fit into all of this a little later, because Japan already presents to us a real-life case study of what the West is up against. And it would be in all of our best interest to pay close attention to this modern-day history lesson. Now, I want you to take a look at this chart. It represents America's fertility rate between the 1800s and 2020. As you can see, the crash in birth rates is devastating, to say the least. In the 1800s, Americans were having an average of 7 children per family. Today, that has drastically reduced to less than 2 children per family. And pretty soon, it will be less than 1 child per family. That means if this pattern continues, eventual extinction. Now, if we look at millennials and Gen Z here, even though they're better educated and better paid than their parents, most millennials and Gen Zs cannot afford many of the basic things that their parents had acquired by their age, like a home, for example. And this is the reason that many of them are voluntarily choosing not to have children. In fact, in a recent survey that was carried out with 2,000 adults who do not have children, over 50% of the respondents said that they didn't plan to have children either now or in the future. And it's the exact same story in many other countries. Take the UK, for example. Houses are simply unaffordable, job security is no longer a thing, unemployment is soaring alongside second and third jobs, and wages are stagnating. But look, you don't need me to tell you these things. You can see these things with your own eyes. And now even those who have become parents for the first time say that the chance of them having a second or third child is slim to none. This is the mind-boggling result of these surveys. Both adults now need to work just to make ends meet. Housing, food, energy, childcare costs are all soaring. Having a baby, they say, is simply unaffordable in this modern age. And with the media doing their damage as well over recent years by promoting this child-free lifestyle, or even worse, saying not to have children for the environment, experts are now hitting back and saying that this is not only irresponsible, but it's about to backfire on us very hard indeed. A study published in The Lancet said that a shocking 2/3 of the world's population will be in decline in the next 25 years. That means a lot less people on the planet very soon. But the decline won't be equal. It's the Western richer nations that are going to get hit the hardest. Today, the West is considered the global seat of wealth and power, but in the future, this is going to change, and it's going to change very rapidly. This will lead to global power shifts and a total reorganization of society in these affected countries. Even more military conflicts will break out around the world as old scores will be settled and regional power plays ensue. In the West, a decreased native population, along with increased migration from poorer and less educated countries, could lead to a vast skills shortage, with the West not even being recognizable in decades to come as developing nations begin to take over. If we look at Japan for a vision of the future, it's a very wealthy country, the third wealthiest in the world in fact, even richer than the United Kingdom. But in spite of this fact, the population crisis is causing grave concern for Japan's leaders. Just recently, the Prime Minister said the population crash has taken the country to, and I quote here, the brink of being unable to maintain social functions. This was after the country recorded a staggering population decline of 837,000 people in 2023 alone. That's a decrease of 2,293 people per day, or 96 people per hour. In fact, just based on that math, if you were to think of by the time you reach the end of this video, another 30 people will have disappeared from Japan, never to return. Stats show that they need a birth rate of 2.1 just to stabilize the population. But right now, it's only 1.3. And the population forecast doesn't look good going forward. In fact, with Japan's National Institute of Population and Social Security Research just stated that Japan's population will continue to crash. But it's really the year 2030 that the Japanese population goes off the cliff. This chart shows just how badly. And it's interesting that this same year, 2030, just seems to keep popping up in all of my research as a key year. If you're a subscriber here and you have been for a while, you'll know why. And if you're not a subscriber, well, you know which button to click right now. And also please like the video, just helps it to get ranked. And believe me, with the sort of content that I cover, I desperately need it. Now, naturally, this puts Japan in a desperate position, and the country is currently trying everything it can to increase birth rates, like reducing the cost of childcare. But unfortunately, people they see marriage and having children as highly restrictive on their lives, especially for women. Are you starting to see the patterns now? Now, before we get into the whole AI girlfriends and bots and everything else, which Japan is at the forefront of course, we also need to address another precedent issue in the West. And this is the declining marriage rate and increasing divorce rate. Now, for perspective here, in 1946, there were 1.6 weddings for every 100 people in the USA for that year. That number dropped to 0.8 weddings per 100 people in the year 2000. That's a 50% drop. And by 2022, marriage rates had dropped further to 0.6 per 100 people. That means less than one wedding for every 200 people. And we wonder why single-person households are on the increase right across the Western world. But I also find it interesting from the latest research that the highest levels of loneliness and mental health problems are for those people who have the greatest level of access to smartphones and the internet. And it's correlated, the more time spent on smartphones and the internet, the worst is the loneliness and mental health of that person. This probably explains why Gen Z, or Gen Z if you are one of my UK subscribers, this is the generation that's never known a world without the internet. They also just happen to be the loneliest with the worst mental health. And this has led to a very strange turn of events in our society. And now, this is where we get on to the rise of AI romantic partners. But this is really just the tip of the iceberg. And let me just warn you in advance, you might need to sit down for what we're going to cover in the rest of the video, because just from doing this research, I had to keep picking up my jaw at multiple points. Now, I'm not going to go into the real depths of just how disturbing some of this gets, and it really, really does. And especially how there's a lot of organizations trying to normalize a lot of this now, which is even more worrying. But what they don't tell us is this absolutely staggering fact that I stumbled upon almost by accident. And these are AI companion apps. And if you're just joining us, welcome to the Black Mirror show in real life. In 2023, a Snapchat influencer launched an AI version of herself that could be your girlfriend for just $1 a minute. Yes. And today, Karen AI has over 1,000 paying subscribers, and she said she could be earning up to $5 million a month very, very soon. Now, as it stands, she already has 15,000 users on a waiting list, proving the strong demand for her product. But even Karen AI isn't as real as it gets. This is entry-level stuff here, and that's why I said we're not going to go into the explicit details of just how dark some of this stuff gets. But this is really where it gets even crazier. Have you heard of Replica? Well, neither had I until I started this research and started speaking to users of some of these software. And what they told me was very disturbing, without being too judgmental, may I add. Because Replica is an AI software integration that allows you to build your perfect friend, or more specifically, intimate partner. And you can design them exactly as you want. And there's certain softwares that even make these so real that it's very close to being a real person, as if you were on a Zoom call or something like that. It actually answers real life questions as if it's a real person. It has facial expressions. It responds to what you say. And this is why so many people are being tricked into thinking that they're conversing with a real person, even though they know that they are not. And in my opinion, this is going to be the next major mental health problem sweeping the world. A kind of love sickness, as it were, as both men and women begin to fall in love with their avatars, I guess they can say. And the reason I know this is because the Italian government recently ordered the online site Replica to remove the, well, let's just say a certain feature from the bot. And the emotional responses by the users was deeply worrying to me. These range from anger to upset, even going into a state of depression, feeling as though they had lost a real-life intimate partner. Now, this is where it gets significantly worse, especially for men, because it's now said that a lot of men are beginning to move away, and the numbers are absolutely mind-blowing, from having real relationships with women, and this is again predominantly in Western countries, and opting for relations with pleasure dolls and bots instead. Again, I can't believe I'm actually saying these things. Now, probably you hearing this, you had the same reaction as I did when I first started to speak to people about this and do the research. But it was only when I started to look at, I know, but look at some of these dolls that my mind was blown at just how real some of these faces actually look. And by the end of this year, it's forecast that we won't just have the AI chatbots that look almost real and the synthetic dolls that again look almost real, this is where we have the merging of the two. And this is where it gets really crazy. And we won't even get into the VR headsets, virtual reality aspect of this in this video, because that's a whole nother level. But to give you a sort of visual illustration here, if you've ever seen the BBC TV show called Humans, well, we're basically talking about a very basic version of one of these people, these synthetics. I pulled a statement from one of these AI relationship websites to try to understand for myself what the lure was with all of this. And it said this: AI relationships give the user the benefits of a human relationship without the entanglements. And I think let's add another part to this, and also the costs. Because again, the surveys and the studies show that what's putting off a lot of people from dating at the moment is the cost of dating. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, come on Neil, none of this stuff is ever going to take off. Well, it already has. In fact, this industry is absolutely exploding. So we seriously, again, need to look to Japan and realize that Japan's reality could soon be our reality very, very quickly. And when this happens, none of us will be ready for this Ready Player One meets Mad Max kind of world when this is ushered in. Ladies and gentlemen, this latest exponential trend is more serious than anyone even realizes. And when combined with a collapsing birth rate, falling marriage rate, it's obvious to me that we are in very, very big trouble. Thank you for watching. As always, please share this video with anyone you think would like to watch it. Please click the like button if you haven't already. And thank you so much for being a subscriber here. Take care, God bless you, and I will see you next time.